Hi, my name is Dr. Kanna. I welcome you for today's new session, and I want to share a few things which would help you to do personal analysis in SWOT. What is SWOT? S-W-O-T. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. SWOT is a scientific tool for individuals, organizations to study these four elements to analyze what is past and what is future plan. SWOT focuses on how an individual reaches to the goal. And this SWOT studies internal and external factors of any individual in his career. Definitely, these internal and external factors which are favorable and unfavorable for the students there. But today, SWOT is changed into SWOC, the last letter in S-W-O-T, S-W-O-C now. Why T is changed to C? Actually, T means threats, and it has a negative implication usually in this acronym. So actually the term negative is originated from the military, which means negative meaning. That's why using this C, that is challenge or constraint, is recommended to create a positive attitude in the minds of the students now. Regarding the SWOT analysis, there is a small story prescribed for you from the life of an African American woman and who achieved a great success in her life despite all her threats, despite all her problems and the weaknesses in her life. Now look at the story. The story is about Wilma Rudolph. She was an African American woman and who was born on 23rd June in the year 1940. A very interesting thing that she was the 28th child of the 22 children in her family. So that is, one could understand what her life and what her family is. And she was born in a very poor family, and where her father was working as a railway porter and the mother was just cleaning the houses, and which we call in our language that she is a maid servant. So they could not afford to educate all these 22 children in the family. Is it possible? It is quite impossible for the parents to educate all the 22 children and equally. And a very misfortune thing or very unfortunate thing in the life of this Wilma Rudolph, she was born prematurely, weighing below 2 kgs only. That led her into many problems, many health problems in her life. And she was attacked even by pneumonia also twice, and which led her to many complicated problems regarding the health. And she was born with polio, and where she failed to walk. That crippled her from walking. And all the doctors declared that she would never walk in her life. But for several years, her brothers and sisters, and even the mother also, they helped her to walk a little bit at least, and they keep massaging her 2 legs, and so that they believed and they had a lot of faith in the God that she would definitely walk one day in the future. And to make the matters severely worse, and when we analyze her father's status, financial status, her father was just only a railway porter, where he could not afford to medicate this girl, this Wilma Rudolph, and to facilitate all her medical treatments there. But however, her mother is always constantly encouraging this girl, and she has been constantly motivating this girl, and she was the only inspiration for this girl to walk in the future. One fine morning, Wilma Rudolph had a dream, and she shared the dream with her mother that she wants to be the fastest woman runner in this world. But when they approached the doctor simply said that, and he again repeated the same, that she would never walk in her life. But the mother told that by the grace of God and by the faith what they had actually in the God, definitely this Wilma Rudolph would one day walk, and one day she would be the fastest runner in the world. And she never went to even school until the age of 9 years old. And we could imagine that what her life was exactly. Finally, at the age of 13 years, she entered the first race, where she could beat the street boys. And after having observed these street races, her sisters made a track for her practice nearby the school. And finally, at the age of 15 years, they approached a coach, where she could find a wonderful coach who always supported her. And when they approached the coach, this woman shared her dream, what she wanted to become in the future. And again she said the same statement that I want to be the fastest runner in this world. But the coach never disappointed this woman, this girl. And he supported her dream, and he wanted to help her in achieving her dream. And he simply said, whatever the spirit you have, and that would help you definitely to reach your goal, and nobody can stop you reaching and achieving that particular goal to become the fastest woman in this world. But as I told you that she comes from a very large family, and perhaps her father would have got her married at an early age, and by the age of 17 years and there was another misfortune in her life, that she became pregnant, and that would be a great disaster in the life of this woman. And how could one become the fastest runner after having given a birth to a child? But she could not give up any chance, and she kept practicing, and she gave a lot of priority only to this practice always. So the time has come now, in the year 1960, in the US Olympics. Now she got to Perth to participate in the Olympics, especially in the 3 events, 100 meters, 200 meters and 400 meters here. Very interesting thing is that Wilma was matched against a woman and who had never been beaten by anyone in this world, and she had the world record that she would win always once she stepped into the track. And very unfortunate thing that Wilma was matched against this woman to participate in the track, but to the surprise of all the viewers, she won 100 meters race against this woman, defeating her, and she won the gold medal in 100 meters now. And again in the second event, she participated in the same with the same woman, against the same woman, that is Jutahian, and she defeated again even in the 200 meters also. And finally, and when it comes to the 400 meters relay, in the third event, 400 meter relay, and where 4 participants were involved, and generally in the event, the first 3 participants and the first 3 runners ran very fast and handed over the baton to this woman, Wilma Rudolph, but she dropped suddenly this baton, and then later she could pick up the baton and ran fast, and finally she won. There was the same woman and who was defeated twice by Wilma Rudolph in the 100 and 200 meters, and where she was almost reaching the goal, and this woman took up the baton and ran faster towards the goal, and finally she could win even 400 meter relay also. She made a history in the history of Olympics 1960 by winning the 3 gold medals, and that was the greatest history, and that was unbreakable record till now, that no woman athlete has broken such record, winning the 3 gold medals in the Olympics. So that would be really a wonderful inspirational story for all of us. What do you say? Now let us apply these SWOT in the life of Wilma Rudolph. And I told you that she was a great athlete, but she was not from such a rich family and from such a sophisticated family, but she was born in a very poor family, where her father was just railway porter and mother was just a maid servant here. And when we apply this story into SWOT analysis now, and as I told you that this African American woman, Wilma Rudolph, made history in the 1960s Olympics now. And she became the first African American woman to win 3 gold medals in Olympics. She is one of the most celebrated female athletes of all the time. Her story absolutely as inspirational for all of us. She was also called the Black Pearl. Now let us apply the story into SWOT acronym, which stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats. And of course, Wilma Rudolph had not believed threats, and she would take the last letter as a challenge also. Well, when we look at the story, Wilma Rudolph had definitely a lot of weaknesses in the family and personally as well as professionally also. Because she was born prematurely, weighing below just 2 kgs only, and that premature birth led her into many health problems here. And she was attacked by polio, and that paralyzed her 2 legs that she could never walk in her life. And she was also attacked by pneumonia twice, and finally she was unable to walk, and she needed support from brothers and sisters always for walking, even to walk a step also. So that was the greatest weakness what Wilma Rudolph had in her life. Let us see what strength she has got actually here. And Wilma Rudolph had great strengths here, and although she was crippled by the physical weaknesses, remember that she was absolutely crippled by the physical weaknesses that she could never walk, and even the doctors also declared that she would never walk in her life. So that was the greatest disappointment in the life of Wilma Rudolph. But her mother never disappointed, and she always constantly supporting this girl for achieving her goal in the life. So what strengths we are discussing now? Wilma Rudolph had a great strength here, although she was crippled by the physical weaknesses, and she had an amazing power of mental strength, and and her dream of becoming the fastest runner is another great strength in her life, that she has set a goal first, that what she wanted to do in the future despite all her problems, and she had self-confidence, and she has higher self-esteem, that she was not feared by the fear of weakness, and she was not feared by the fear of failure, but she challenged the circumstances, and she challenged all her weaknesses in the life. So that was the greatest strength what Wilma Rudolph had. And when we look at the threats in the life of Wilma Rudolph here, and she had even the threats. And what are the threats we could analyze here? That basically she was born in a very poor family, and she was born in a very large family also, that where her number was 20th. She was the 20th child of 22 children in the family. And when we look at father and the mother, father was a railway porter and the mother was only just a maid servant, and these two people could not afford to provide any medical facilities to this girl in the family. She doesn't have even proper medical facilities also. That is another barrier, that is another threat in her life. And she had a strong social barrier. Just imagine that she was an African American woman, I told you right from the beginning. And she was born in and she has got a black stigma, the origin of black stigma. She had a strong racial barrier that she was an African woman, and she had that black stigma, and she was an originated black stigma there. And above all, she was a woman. A woman is meant nothing in this male-dominated society. So that was the brutal attitude of the male-dominated society towards a woman who had set up a dream to become the world's fastest runner in this world. But could anyone support this girl? No way. The doctors never supported. The doctors never advised this girl to walk at least. But the mother and the father and the entire family never discouraged this girl, but always supported to achieve her goal, and finally she could win the 3 gold medals and created a history in Olympics there. Now, when we see the acronym opportunities now, what are the opportunities that Wilma Rudolph had in her life to create such a history to become the world fastest runner in 1960s Olympics? And absolutely the first thing is that she had used family as the best resource of inspiration to achieve the success in her life, because there was a mother, there was a father and all the siblings who motivated all the time, and all the family members supposed her dream. That is the important thing. Generally when we set up such a dream and all our friends and all our neighbors and the family members, sometimes, most of the times, they simply say that why do you want to go? Why you cannot? The word first comes to our mind is you cannot do that. So that is absolutely wrong, that because when we look at the story, and she had such a wonderful opportunity from her parents, from the family, from all her siblings, and finally she had a wonderful coach who encouraged her to achieve her to the best in her life. And finally she had a wonderful coach who encouraged her to the best always. Now let us see how Wilma Rudolph had overcome all these challenges. Because when she has set up such a big task to become the fastest runner in the world, and she was a very weak personality, and she was crippled, and she was attacked by the pneumonia, and she was so weak physically. But when we found such threats in one's life, how can one overcome such threats in the life is a very important thing. And here, she overcame challenges with some opportunities here. As I told you now, the threats and opportunities. The threats are that she was in a poor family and financial status was very weak, the father was a porter, and these are things. And what are the opportunities I discussed? And she had such a wonderful family that who always motivated this girl to achieve her goal there. And when we look at these two, how she overcame the opportunities, how she overcame the challenges with what she has got the opportunities here. Although she was born in a very poor family, and she found that she was not poor in the spirit, because even the coach also said that with this spirit, nobody can stop you to defeat. Nobody can stop you to become the fastest runner in the world. And finally, first of all, she defeated even the poverty. That is the basic thing that she has got in the family as a threat, as a challenge now. And she has got a wonderful support from the family members, and she never allowed in her mind the racial stigma that she was a black woman, she was a downtrodden woman to the society. And finally, she successfully overcame even the gender discrimination also, because right from the beginning, she had been competing with all the boys in the streets and the men in the race there, and so that she never had such a discrimination between the male and female. And finally, she proved herself more than any man in the Olympics, that she won the 3 gold medals in the 1960s Olympics. So that was really greatest history in the life of Wilma Rudolph, how she achieved despite all her physical problems. She had such physical problems what she has got. Well, I hope you all understand how Wilma Rudolph had succeeded in her life, and she's defeated the poverty, she defeated the physical weakness, and she challenged all her weaknesses, and finally she overcame the challenges with all the opportunities what she has got in her family now. Now let us look at the 4 letters carefully, SWOT, and these stand for, as I told you already, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats here. So when we look at the analysis of these 4 letters, and here the strengths and the weaknesses are internal factors, whereas opportunities and threats are known as the external factors here. So SWOT is sometimes called as the internal and external analysis of any individual or an organization also. These strengths and opportunities are always helpful for any person in the life, whereas the weaknesses and the threats are harmful to one career, because if Wilmer Rudolph had feared of the failure, because remember, a fear of failure is always the first enemy in one's life. Now let us see why SWOT is useful for students. The typical problem of today's youth is ignorance, ignoring oneself. They know lot of things about the others. They know lot of things. They know many things about their favorite cricketers, their favorite heroes, and their favorite heroines also. And they they want to know many things about the others rather knowing about themselves here. But they don't know about themselves. That's why we find a few advertisements also sometimes. If you want to know about yourself, contact us. You find such advertisements, some newspapers also. That's why I forgot to tell you in the beginning that why there is a saying from the Socrates philosophy that know thyself first means know yourself first. That is a very important thing. This shows humans' quest for knowledge, and Socrates taught this truth to his disciple Plato, and Plato has taught this one to his disciple Aristotle, and Aristotle taught this to his disciple Alexander the Great, who virtually conquered the entire world. Therefore, in order to identify these strengths and weaknesses, analyzing the opportunities and challenges, SWOT analysis is proven to be the most useful technique in today's curriculum. Well, now how to do SWOT analysis? To do your personal SWOT analysis, now answer the following questions. Are you ready? First, I ask you the questions, only a few questions from the strengths. What strengths do you have? Answer these questions carefully and find what strengths you have got in your life. Question number 1. What merits do you have that others don't have? What do other people see as your strengths in your life? Which talent makes you most proud of? Do you have friends who motivate you? Let us see what weaknesses do you have. What task do you usually avoid due to fear of failure? What do people around you see your weakness? What are your negative work habits like waking up late, short temper, anger, etc. Now let us see the opportunities what we have with us. How can you take advantage of the sources? Can you take advantage of changing syllabi? How do you tackle a difficult subject when others fear? In which area you do not have complaint comparatively with others? Well, we have analyzed the strengths, weaknesses and opportunities. But now let us see what are the challenges you have. What obstacles do you currently face at study? Is your subject demand decreasing? Does changing syllabi fear you reaching your goal? Could any of your weaknesses lead to failure? Okay. Have you answered all these questions which I asked just now? Well, if you are able to answer, if you have the proper answers to these questions, definitely you would be successful in the life. So my dear students, consider this from your own perspective. Consider these particular questions, SWOT, whatever the questions I just asked. Consider all these questions and try to answer all these questions right from your own perspective. And of course, everybody advises you that you should be always realistic and you should be always optimistic, and don't be modesty and don't be shy in to share any of your feelings, any of your things with your friends, with your teachers and with your family members also. That is the most important thing for all of us to achieve the success in our life. Thank you for watching me on this video. Have a nice day.